All right, ladies and gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight? Thank you for joining us here for another live interview on TejanoKeyboard.com. I am your host, Rolando Revilla Jr. I want to send a shout out going out to everybody who's joining us here in the chat, especially going out to John Ortiz, who's been in the chat every week. We appreciate that so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe the videos. And if you guys have any questions in regards to anything and related to Tejano keyboard, or maybe not Tejano keyboard, just anything keyboard related, music theory or anything like that, be sure to send your questions our way. Other than that, I want to present to you guys, all the way from San Antonio, Texas, our guest here, Mr. Mark Ledesma. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How you doing, Roland?
Man, I'm hanging in there. I'm just here chilling, doing our weekly thing, sporting my Shroot Farm shirt. For those of you who watch The Office, you guys know I wore my Dunder Mifflin shirt a couple weeks ago. Last week I wore. That's one thing that Bianca was telling me. My wife Bianca, she's like, "Man, you got to make sure not to wear the same shirts for the interviews because people are going to think you have bad hygiene and stuff." So last week I wore my New Holland Brewery shirt from Holland, Michigan. So shout out to everybody from West Michigan. Great brewery over there. But enough about my shirts. Let's talk a little bit about you, man. First of all, we were talking about this a little bit before we went live. How you holding up with COVID-19?
Man, I'm doing all right. Like I said, like we were talking earlier, it's pretty bad. It's getting a little worse out there right now. Honestly, if I were to say anything, man, just people need to try to stay home, man, because they're gonna actually put a little bit more force on us, man. And if we don't, it's just not about the health, but they'll start putting a little bit more force on everybody. So, man, I would say let's just try to listen and, and stay home as much as possible. I know we always kind of clowning on here a little bit, but it's a serious thing, man. So I try to do my best to stay away and keeping the rules, man, as much as I can.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we're talking about too, is about in order to get a lot of these establishments, the ones that will actually survive the storm, right? In order for them to stay to be able to reopen, we have to watch the numbers be in decline, right? And if we obviously start seeing a second spike or a third spike, then that's not going to happen, and then we're going to have to push back a lot of these events and venues further on down the line, which ultimately not only hurts musicians like yourself and I from being able to make a living, but also it does a disservice to everybody else who's trying to go out and have a good time too, because
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
but I agree, and you're right. The hard part is looking at the little clubs that some of them ain't gonna make it, and so I feel bad, for them because, like I said, they keep us busy, man. So we gotta, try to tend to follow some rules sometimes here, man. And so, I know everybody thinks something ain't gonna happen. No, that ain't gonna do it. But man, it will get bad if we don't listen. So.
Yeah, and unfortunately, well, you know what? Let's stop talking about this, man, because we could do a whole show talking about this. But so you're hanging in there. You're still alive. Your heart's still beating, and brother,
okay. And thank God. Like I said, I'm trying to do my best, man. I'm healthy though right now, so I'm all right.
You checking in on your band brothers and sister?
Definitely, man. We all keep in touch here, and we're all been. Everybody's been doing good. They've been, trying to stay in the house and at least, just that's all we can do, right? I mean,
right.
Getting a little fatter. That's about all. Oh man.
Yeah, and so are you guys working on anything creatively right now during the downtime? Everybody's kind of set up with all these remote setups and stuff.
Yeah, I will say that that's probably one of the things that I can say that we've had time to actually be in the studio and go to work a little bit. Because we've been blessed to be able to play every weekend, man, and I can't lie, we usually take off on Fridays and we don't get home till Monday sometimes. So we're one of those bands that have been able to just stay busy like that, and it's hard, man. And I have a job, I still have a job regardless. So when I get to the house, I gotta go to work Monday through Friday. It just gets tough trying to be in the studio and try to, get songs together. But since this downtime came, unfortunately.
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, right? Because you're creating some new music,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. But it's gave me time to actually be in my house, and I got a little setup here. And as a matter of fact, it's been kind of fun, man, figuring some things out that we can do online with other people. I just recorded a song not too long ago, just the R&B thing that I wanted to put out about the pandemic again, but still, I got to get with some musicians that were online, and we got to record, and we had a good time, man, doing it. So it was fun.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing about the human spirit, and even like more so like within our Tejano culture is that like we feel a sense of being connected to one another, whether it be through music or food or whatever. And so like even though like we should thank God that we have technology to be able to still stay connected with one another, you know what I mean? Because could you imagine if it was decades ago and we were trying to do something like this? I mean, it would have been impossible to do,
You're right, man. You're right. That's true. Technology is man, it always advances, man. I see it advance almost every year. There's something else new coming up with it. And I'm one of those guys, man. I try to stay on top of that, Right. I know some guys are old school and they're just like, no, man, I don't want to deal with that stuff. And, but me, I'll probably be like that forever, man. Shoot, I could be 80. I'm still trying to get into the computer stuff,
Yeah. I had a professor in college once. It was a class for new technologies or something having to do with new technologies, and he would always joke around because he was an older guy, but his father at the time was still living, and he was like, my father, he would say about his dad, he goes, my father would always call me, he goes, why does the VCR keep blinking 12? He goes, so I got the perfect fix for it. He says it's called electrical tape. He goes, I just cut a little black piece of tape, put it over the clock, and it stopped blinking. Because anytime he would go unplug or do something, the power would go out and it would start blinking, and he'd always call his sons like, man, this thing's blinking 12 again.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's funny.
Yeah. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about your roots, how you got into music and stuff like that. But I got to ask you too how El Barrio Band started.
Okay.
And because you're from that group, right? From way back when.
Oh man, yeah.
You know what?
A long time ago, man.
My dad, may he rest in peace. My family would always go to the local Mexican store in a rural town in Michigan where I grew up. We were nowhere near any of the cities, but this one Mexican store always catered to the Mexicans that lived in town, and the majority of them were Tejano. So, like between my family and my uncle's family, the Ansalduas, we would buy all the new Tejano stuff as soon as it come out, and so my dad wore out the tape of El Barrio Band, and. Man, and I used to listen to some of that music, and I'm still trying to find some of it. I know I have some of it somewhere, but we'll get to that in a second. Go ahead, I'll let you talk.
No, that's great. No, hey, I'm here for you, brother. You tell me. That's an interesting story, man. That group. I probably started with a Barrio Band probably in I think I was like maybe 11 or 12 when I got into that band.
Yeah,
and. Before that, I was in my dad's band. That's where I started. I started with my dad. He had a band, and they got me to play. I was playing keyboards. They started me at 8. I was in a band at 8 years old with my father. And that's how this all, that's probably the normal Mexican guy right there, right?
Yep.
You started a band with your father.
Dude, that's exactly. My dad and I, we were in a band together, and we started that.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, we started about 94, so that album had to come out probably about 92. The Barrio
Band one?
Yeah, Barrio Band was probably 92, 93, somewhere through there.
Years. Uh-huh.
You guys, right?
Oh, us? No,
yeah.
I think when I was in 92, I think we were... Oh, no, you're probably right. It was that. Because I forgot that what happened was we got signed with Sony, and they changed our name. That's what happened. Because we got into like the younger cats. Finally, we got some younger cats in the band.
Right.
It was still the audio band at the time, but then Sony came to us, wanted to sign the band, but then you know how that goes. No, you got to change your name, and that's what happened. So we winded up changing our name to Conexión.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why too, I think it was because I think Sony had just, or it was either Capitol or Sony, I remember, but remember El Barrio Boys?
Yeah, Barrio Boys. Yeah, they were with EMI under Selena and Q Productions and all that stuff. That was
and I remember that's what happened. They were like, "Well, you can't be this because the names they're gonna get confused, blah blah blah," and it was that kind of story that happened behind that.
yeah. No, I understand. There's a band here from Michigan. They were called Grupo Variedad, and they got signed by Freddie Records or somebody, but they got signed, and they were saying, well, you can't call we want to avoid using the word variety or variedad because at the time New Variety Band had just signed with EMI and stuff, so they went by their last name or their surname as they call it, right? So that is the Grupo Aldaco that was around for a while, yeah. And Daniel Daco and all those guys are still around and stuff. Some of them still playing in other bands, Tejano Sound Band. But anyways, awesome. So I understand what you're saying about the name and stuff like that. But yeah, and then of course, so you see, so I knew about El Barrio Band and I knew about Conexión, but I didn't really, I guess, understand that was the evolution of one band. I thought it was two separate bands, but what you're saying it was one band, but because of signing to Sony, y'all had to conform to their standards.
Right, that's what happened. Yeah, we and actually the first Barrio Band tape we did was with, or CD or album, whatever you want to call it back then.
Yeah,
it was with Joey Records, man, actually.
Yep.
And I do remember that, and that was pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
And then after that, like I said, that's when we transitioned. So, but that was some good times, man. I had fun back then.
So how long did Conexión go for, and what was the transition from you being with them between that and joining Jay's band?
Well, I think Conexión lasted probably, man, I couldn't even tell you. I think maybe 3 or 4 years, somewhere around there, if I remember correctly. But I think it was around there, and then what happened was I think Mark Grado, he's a good friend of mine, and he was Jay's manager at the time.
Right.
And I remember, and he called me, said Jay was looking for a background vocalist at the time, and he really needed somebody to go in there and sing some background vocalists. And I remember a little story, and I went to for the rehearsal, man, and I was there, and and I was ready to do my thing, and then Jay was like, "Hold up, man. Who is this?" and I was like, "Man, I'm just here. They called me to see if I could sing background." And I told him, "Yeah, I'll try it out, whatever." He goes, No, wait a minute." He's like, "Well, they told me that the drummer could sing background, so we're going to check this out first." And I was like, "Oh, here we go." So he's like, "So you just take a seat, boy."
So at that time, who was the drummer? Was that
well?
Okay.
I did the same audition that Joe Gonzalez. Chente had just gotten out. When I joined Jay, Chente had gotten out.
Right. Right.
They were looking for the background because Chente was the one singing backgrounds. He was playing and singing backups for Jay. So they were trying to get both, at one time, but that didn't work out too well. I guess they tried Joe to do the both thing, and it didn't work out too well. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, Joe's very talented, man. But it's like one of those things. Like if you're trying to chew gum and walk at the same time, I mean, some people can do it and some people can't. You know what I mean? And not to say that he can't, right? But like if you're trying to if both of them are super critical, it's like one's gonna have to lack. And and I think looking back on Jay's band, he's always had some serious drummers. Yeah. You know what I mean? If the drummers are gonna be cutting back on the drums for to do background vocals or vice versa, you know what I mean? It's just not gonna work out. So I completely understand.
It just happened to work out that way where after I auditioned or whatever, and then Jay was like, "Man, You know, he's like, this sounds great, and you know, Jay was always, you know, he's a vocalist as
Mm-hmm.
well as I am, and you know, the tones have to matter. You know,
Right.
when you're dealing with vocals and all that, you know the difference. If you're a great vocalist, you know about tones and all that.
Yeah, and not only that, but some voices just like blend themselves together where
There you
it's
go.
like it sounds like one voice. One classic point or one classic example would be like Joe and Jimmy Gonzalez, like the original
Exactly.
Mas.
There you go.
Like when you heard
Exactly.
them sing, you could never tell which one
No,
was which because their
no,
tones
man.
just fit so well together, you know?
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Joe after the breakup or Jimmy after the breakup, but I don't think either one of them could ever find that one person that
I don't think
complemented
so,
their
man.
voice quite like they did when they were together. But
Oh,
that's
you're
just my
right.
opinion.
No, yeah, I know, yeah, but that's a great opinion because I agree with you. I've always said that, you know, like, um, people would, it's like a band too, right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I always say this, but even like when you talk about Mas,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I always said like, you know, the reason that longevity was there was because they created this sound that you're not gonna get, you know, and I'm talking about when both of them were together, just like
Mm-hmm.
you are. You know, that sound was just amazing, man. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I don't think you can replicate that. You know, and that's why that is just always been Mas. That's Mas, you know, or
Right.
Mafia. Or you
Yeah,
talk about
exactly.
Mafia,
It's
same
there's like
thing.
a certain chemistry that happens between certain musicians that it either works or it doesn't. And I think, and this is just my opinion, right? And not just because you're on the show, but like when you would sing with Jay, it's like you guys' tones would match up quite well. You know what I mean? And no disrespect to anybody who's been there
Oh
before or
no,
after or whatever. Chente also,
I,
I think, did a really good job. His voice kind of meshed well with Jay's. Your
yeah,
brothers too. You know, your brother did
mhm,
a great job.
right,
Everybody that's been there, man. Jr. Even he
yeah,
complimented well, especially when all three voices would come together. You know what I mean? But
right.
yeah, that is definitely an interesting thing to try to have to think about. Like not just like, hey, do you know the words of the songs? Can you sing in key? It's like it's all
Right.
of that plus like, do these
Hmm.
two colors go together? You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly. And I know we've had a discussion with Jay, and Jay known that, you know, he know that himself. You know, he's told me before, man, it's just the tone. Because me, well, you know, if we go back to the past, I never thought, you know, and I'm always honest with myself, you know, first,
Mm-hmm.
always. And I didn't, you know, the tone of my voice, I never really dug it. I didn't, never liked it. I didn't really want to even become a vocalist. I
Mm-hmm.
was playing, like I said, I was playing keys in my dad's band. That's what I was doing. Kind of just, I don't even know what happened. It just kind of took me away from there. And so, you know, Jay was the one that was always telling me, man, that it's just that tone. When you sing with me, it's the tone that, you know, he had that ear. You know, he's got that ear. He's got the ear of a musician, you know, he
Mm-hmm.
knows. And so he would always tell me that. But me personally, I was always like, man, I don't like my tone. I never have. Until this day, like, I never liked my tone to my voice, you know. But David, like my brother,
Uh,
that dude's tone is just, it's just on. But that's my musician side, my
right,
producer side.
right.
That's that side that tells me I know that dude's voice is like, man, it's his tone that just comes out, just like
Mm-hmm.
Jay or whatever. His tone, the tone of his voice, it
Yeah.
just will attract you just in, you know, like, and that's what's crazy, man, to me. And I think that's cool about music, you know.
And I think even to speak to that, I think that the overwhelming majority of people who sing um, are never happy with their voices. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They happen to just fall into the situation because either by default or whatever, you know what I
right.
mean? There's
Yeah,
probably very few people out there that are like, you know what? I'm a great singer and I like the sound of my voice. You know,
yeah,
if you're like Mariah Carey or
yeah.
Bruno Mars or somebody like that, it just has like
Exactly.
such a great unique voice that, you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
We
no,
have a
I understand.
question that came in the chat real quick, and then we'll get back to the conversation. Angelo Alvarez, who's my neighbor, thank you for watching, is
All right.
wondering what is your favorite DLG song?
Oh man. Oh, golly. I don't. I, you know, I never had a favorite, man. I can't lie to you.
Oh,
There's so many songs that I really liked, and not even from me, not because I was singing it. Just they have so much of a repertoire. I can't even, I don't know. I mean, that'd be difficult to do. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Just like everybody probably else when they were when they did the J albums, those were some of the best albums that I personally, again, my opinion, that I thought were just great.
hmm
All the way down from the music to again, I think, and I'm not just saying this or being dumb, but I just think Jay's voice is, again, we go back to the tone.
hmm
It was just something that I dug,
hmm
that I thought, man, that when they got together, it was just, man, magic. And I don't
hmm
think they can, again, compete with that. It's hard
hmm
to compete with that. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
I know sometimes you have to compete with those albums.
hmm
Like, golly, I gotta try to make an album better than that. What are we gonna
hmm
do? Once you get to that certain level where you just, like, those were some of the best records, it's hard to beat them.
Right.
I think to this day, I'll be honest, I don't think you can beat those records, man. For them, I'm saying, not for anybody else, but just them and personally, those were some of the best albums I've heard. I
hmm
still put those on to this day and listen to them. And
Yeah,
uh,
and that's something about that era of Tejano music that I feel it was like it's like a lot of that music is timeless. You know what I mean? And
it is,
I mean, we can all make the arguments that hey, such and such X radio
yeah.
station they don't play new music and stuff like that. And to an extent, I actually to the majority of the extent I'm on that train. I'm like, hey, if you want this music to move forward, uh, you got to have new blood coming in. But that
Yeah.
being said,
Mhm.
like you have to pay homage to some of those like classics that
Oh,
never ever 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 go away, you know what I mean? and
yeah,
and I think
I
I agree
agree.
with you. Those Jay albums or the David Lee albums with Jay, I think some of those are some of the greatest ones. uh Also, and this is just my opinion, although nobody's asking for it, right? And not just because you're on, but I think some of the ones that came out like early 2000s, late 90s, where they started bringing you in, those were some really good albums, man. Like the Siempre Unidos or Unidos, what was it called? The
Oh,
Unidos.
Estamos Unidos.
Estamos Unidos. There you go. That one was
Yeah.
cool because, like, talking about voices that like match a certain way, I never would have thought, hey, you know what, Louis Padilla and Mark Ledesma.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's some really good. And then you got some Jay in there, and you got some, Stephanie Lynn.
Right.
Just all sorts of just like and then the arrangements were fresh. I think, and this is just my opinion, but around that time was kind of like David Lee's second win because once the Solo Contigo album came out, all those songs were bangers, man. And the Aquí Estaré album, that one was really good too.
Oh, man.
So
Yeah.
so I
I love that.
I I kind of feel like that was kind of like when David Lee was kind of like not reinventing himself, but kind of like opening up to ideas that were maybe fresh, for that time and stuff like that. They're
Mhm.
still continuing to make great music, and by all
Oh, yeah,
means. But
definitely.
to me, I think like there's a handful of David Lee albums that you can go to. Okay, so the next question apparently is like, if you don't have a favorite song, what's your favorite album? David Lee.
I think, wow, man. That's just so hard. That's a hard question, man. Like, it really is. Oh, wow, man. That's a difficult question. Because I can't lie. I keep going, me personally, and I don't know if it's because of the error, like you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
When everything was just boom, it would just blew up.
Right.
Um, and maybe that's why, because it takes me back. Maybe I have memories myself about when Jay was with David or whatever. If you talk about the David Lee album, that's when I have to say, well, man, that was when I was kind of like in the club, when I was having fun, or when, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
I used to go and dance, and I don't do no more.
Right.
But
Right.
it just brings back that to me. So I'm like, wow, So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I would say that. I'm not saying that I don't like the albums I did with David Lee. I mean, I think they were great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was me saying when I was with them, I think I like the last one. To me, I think uh, I think it was it Solo Contigo was the last one? I'm not sure if it was Solo. Oh, Aquí Estaré.
Yeah,
Aquí Estaré was the
yeah,
last one.
that one was, and you know what? I think that one, I think was special to my ears
Mhm.
because, and like I said, nobody shoot me for this, right? This is just my opinion,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Uh, most of okay, I'm gonna try to say this as politically as possible. So,
I
uh,
got you.
most of David Lee's albums have a certain sound because they use certain people, right? And
Right.
so when they recorded Aquí Estaré and they
Mhm.
didn't use the usual setup, you know what I mean? It sounded more true to Los Musicales, if you ask me, right?
Mhm.
And no
Yeah.
disrespect to anybody, any engineers, producers, or whatever, right?
Right.
But the creative process behind it, it seemed like it was more um, centered around the band instead of a producer saying, "Hey, this is what you got to do," or anything like that. And again, no disrespect to anybody because you
No,
know,
I understand. I got you.
but
I just think another thing I'll add to that was just I think it took a minute for as long as I was there. You know, we only did 3 hours. You know, all
mhm,
these other guys, I think when they were, um, I think Marcos was probably in there the longest before
mhm,
me,
right,
and but they had a lot of albums with Marcos. You know what I'm saying?
right,
And so I think on that album, it just over the years or whatever that we were together, we just kind of found each other. That's what I think. I think
mhm,
and on that last one, we kind of were like, we know what's going on now. You know what I mean?
right,
And we kind of found David was working with me. We was all trying to work with each other. Like,
right,
okay, we know what we need to do to make this sound the
mhm,
way it needs to sound. You know, with amplifying, trying to be courteous to what I need to do. You know what I mean? And then just finding the voice, the music, everything together. And
mhm,
that's why I say I like that album the best because I think I found my voice too. Let me just say that. I found the tone that I was like, okay, I think this is the right tone for me
mhm,
to sing with these guys.
right,
I think on some of the other albums, honestly, when we're talking about this, um, I just thought I was singing a little too high,
mhm,
and and that's again, I guess that's just my musician side that comes out. I'm always going to criticize myself, man, always.
right,
And when I'm listening to something or, um, and I'm going to be like, hey, man, you know how it goes. You're going to criticize yourself when something comes out.
mhm,
And the first 2 albums, that's how I was doing that. I remember I would
mhm,
be at the house, I'd listen, I'd be like, man, why did I do? Or I'd find things like, why did I do that? I should have did this.
mhm,
And that's just me being hard on myself, man, because I'm always like that. I'm trying to do the best I can.
mhm.
But Aquí Estaré, I just think that we just found each other, man, on that album.
Yeah.
My personal, again,
So let me
opinion.
ask you
You know,
this: in relationship to keyboard playing, right? Did any of your background in playing an actual instrument help create that sound for that album? Because here's the thing: is that a lot of singers that are with bands sometimes like to have creative input, but if they're not familiar with I mean, they're familiar with music
oh
obviously
yeah,
because they sing, right? But like as far as like how to construct an arrangement, how to
right.
bring chords together, how to how to have the melody fit with the harmony and all that. Do you think that your um, knowledge of keyboard playing and like music theory perhaps kind of shaped or molded the direction of that last album?
I I wouldn't say no because I don't know. I wouldn't just say that all the way because like I said, man, David and his brothers,
Mm-hmm.
they're talented, man.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are talented. Dickie, Adam, Dave. When they're together, you're not going to create nothing that's going to sound like that. I don't care who you are. You're not going to get even close.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we just said earlier. Things just gel, right? And
Right.
they created this music. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that those three guys, when they play, they have this creative sound, and they know they're producers in their own minds. They already know what they're gonna do. I've
Right.
been in the studio with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
When we got in there, whatever we were doing our guides or whatever, you know, I see them. I see them coming up with what they needed to come up with to sound great. So I didn't really have any say in a production part of it. Now,
Really?
if I wrote a song, like I remember writing a song "No Puedo Estar Sin Ti" on one of the albums. I think we wrote like 3 songs for David Lee at one time.
Yo, I gotta confess.
Now
I gotta confess real quick. That's my jam.
is it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, man, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Or what is it?
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's my cut right there, man.
So it's just crazy how melodies come to me, man. You know, and I wouldn't have never thought David Lee would do that song, right? You know, because it had a little bit more chord changes than they're used to, you know, and things like that.
Right.
But you know, when I didn't go in there and go, hey man, it needs to sound like this. Right. You know, I just said, hey David Lee, I got a song, man. Do you think you want to take a listen? And they checked it out, and then they played it their way. And I thought it was great the way it sounded, because that's them. You know, I would never take away something from a band like that. You know, so going, you know, to that level. But yeah, it did have some chords in there, and I remember Dickie would say, "Man, there's a lot of chords in this," you know. But he did it. You know, he played it, and I thought it sounded dope, man. I mean, when the way it came out, you know.
Yeah. Hey, Nuestra Familia recorded that too, right?
Yeah, they did. Nuestra Familia recorded a bunch of songs we wrote.
Yeah, they did also that one, that cumbia that Jay did, that ba 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 da da da. Yeah. Right. What's the name of that tune?
Oh my God, I forgot myself right now.
No me dejes solo. There you go. Yep. Yeah,
that was a good song too, man. You know, I just think that we did an album, but at the time we were writing a lot. Back then, we were writing a lot of songs, and we just had people coming to us about doing them, man. And sometimes you got to take that out. I didn't want to take nothing away from that group because they were a great group. It's just that we were like, man, yeah. I mean, if some big group comes to you and says, let's do that song, you know. Right. So it was kind of like we had a hard time going, man, what are we gonna? But we were like, no, let's give it to them, man. If they want it, you know, they're you know, let's see what happens, you know. I mean, that's your dream, you know, is to try to get some big group to record your songs, you know.
Right. So. Hey, I have a question. Did you have a hand in that one Ricky Valens tune that Me Abandonaste? Was that you?
Yeah, that's another song that we wrote.
Okay,
yeah,
right on. Man, you know what? Now that I think about it, man, our paths have crossed more than I mean, now that it's coming back to me, because I produced that tune for Ricky, and Val did the sax, and we used a bunch of Michigan cats, but we did that tune, and somebody told me that it was you, and then there was some other people that I think were like, you know, either did part of it or something. Mando Velasquez.
Mondo had some been in the writing process of it too, because they had recorded it, but I don't.
It was a merengue, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They did it into a different style.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what he called me one day. He goes, "Man, Markel, I don't know if you want to, but I want to record the song, but I was like, man, I don't care." But yeah, you know who influenced that song was Jay, man. Jay influenced that song. One day we were on the bus, and he was humming this melody from a commercial, and I can't remember the commercial, but the commercial went with violins, and it would go, right, and then that just. He kept doing that, and it just stuck in my head, and I was like, man, that's bad. I need to write a song like that. So that's what I got, that song like that.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because, and then you and I worked on some other stuff for some Midwest bands too. We did that one.
Yvonne, right?
Yeah, for Iván y Fuego. Yeah, we did that one. Shout out going out to they're here in Toledo too. But We're all in
Okay.
quarantine, so they're here. I bet you they're at home. I'm just kidding. I want to send a quick shout out here, going out to Adam Brown. It says, "What's up from Colorado?" Again, thank you for doing these sessions. I appreciate it very much, brother. Be sure to spread the word, share, like, subscribe, let people know. That way we can get more people in on this, so we can. We've got quite a few people watching right now live, and I'm pretty sure once this is all done, it'll be uploaded to YouTube. People can watch those later on. And but anyways, so going back to, so you guys were writing a lot of songs, and other artists are picking it up. Nuestra Familia, Jay, David Lee, Ricky Valens. What are some of the other artists that you can think of off the top of your head that maybe did some of your guys' music?
Man, a long time ago when me and Pete were together.
Pete who?
And Pete Bustamante.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
When we were the ones that kind of always together, like trying to write a song, figure out the melody. So back then we had so many songs that we had written that we always thought they were great songs. It's just that we weren't in the limelight, until we finally got somewhere or whatever. But that's when people started to recognize, and I think even Gilbert Velasquez had some of our songs that he would say, "Hey man, do this song. These guys did this song, but man, it's a great song." And he kind of shopped it around for us a little bit. And I remember even Stephanie had did a song called "Tendrás que Pagarlo," and that was a song that we had written. Chente had done "Cuando Te Conocí." I don't know if you remember that song.
The Nuestra Familia did that one too, right?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We did that song. We had written that song. We did there was another song called oh man, I'm trying to remember. Oh, Quiero Amarte, that we did as a cumbia. And it had this little R&B melody that I kind of came up with, and me and Desperados actually made it into a rhyme. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
But they used to play it on KCN too, man, for a little while. And those are just people, just like groups like that started coming around and just kind of picking up the songs that we used to write back then. Mm-hmm. And back then, like I said, we were so hungry, man. We were just writing all the time, man. And, it was so much fun, like we were just in there, just, okay, let's do another one. And, it just came easy to us. Let me put it that way.
That's awesome, man. Now, so after David Lee, what happened? Like, I know that there was some stuff that you did on your own before Ledesma actually came together, right? Like you released, what was that one ranchera? Don't tell me, because it was like a norteño,
the little conjunto song, right?
Yeah, man, it's gonna bug me. You already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're
Okay, what's the name of it?
It's called Espérate.
Espérate, there you go.
Yeah.
It's even like the first, it's so catchy. Espérate. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that song was weird too, man. I was just one night laying in bed. Sometimes things like that just happen, and I just kept hearing that word. I don't know why, but I just kept hearing Espérate, and that melody right there. I just kept hearing that. And one night I just like, you know what? I need to get up and put this down. I got up. I went downstairs. I kind of just put it down just because I didn't want to forget, And I thought it was catchy, like the hook. I was like, man, that hook is catchy. I gotta keep up with it. So I think it was maybe just the first verse of it that I kind of like had a little bit down, And at that time I told Val, I said, man, I got this song, man, and I don't know. I just keep hearing this song. I don't know if somebody's about to leave my ass or what. So and he was like, dog, that's the melody is dope, whatever. And I was like, yeah, man. I said, let's try to figure something out. So we called Gabriel, actually. We called Gabriel Zavala.
Yep.
And he was like, man, yeah, I'm down. How do you want it to sound? He was like asking me. I said, well, man, I still wanted to sound like at that time, that's when this whole little change, right, was happening with the signal thing, and it was kind of like trickling.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I said, maybe we should do something like that, but I don't want to get too crazy. Let's still make it a little Tejano, put the keyboards in there. I don't want it all accordion.
Right.
That's what they were like, okay, well, and then, so him and Val kind of got together on the production of it. Mm-hmm. Gabriel winded up writing the rest of the song.
Right.
And it was a great song. I had a great time doing that song.
Yeah.
And that really, that was just like a little thing where that's how it happened, man. I felt it, and I was like, let's just put it out. I mean,
Right.
It wasn't an album. It wasn't.
Yeah,
we were
it was
like,
just a
let's
solo
put
thing.
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a couple more shout outs. Speaking of Ivan y Fuego, Michael Ibarra says, what's up, my dudes? So Michael's in the house.
Michael, what's going on, brother?
Also, my good friend Chris Rodriguez from Tejano Highway 281. He said,
What
Mark
up,
did an
Chris?
awesome job on my song, No Fui Yo.
Okay, yeah.
No fui
Man,
yo.
I like that song,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, that was a good song, too.
That's a great song. I always love that song, man. I wish we would have played it a lot more. I think we played it a couple times when I was with David, but we didn't. It wasn't like always, you know. It's just every once in a while.
That started with
But
that da da do do da da,
I love
right?
that song. Huh?
It started with that da da do do da da.
Yeah. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That was a good song.
That was a good
Great
song, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
So shout out to everybody who's joining us. If you guys are just logging on right now, this is Mark down that way. It's Mark over there.
Yeah.
I'm all
I keep trying to
backwards.
figure out where to look.
Yeah.
My eyes are all crooked.
So then you did a couple of like solo things, right? And you did some R&B stuff, you know, under the artist name Markel, right?
Right.
And then
yeah, I did some R&B stuff that I've always been into the R&B thing. When I was a kid, I was a DJ. You know, I tell people that and they get weirded out, but I was a DJ. Actually, I had MKs. I would go buy records every weekend. Because I was playing in the Tejano band.
right.
But me personally, like, I just don't like one type of music. I've always loved music. That's what it's always going to be for me. I don't care what it is. I grew up like that. I guess it's like language. There? Sorry.
There he is.
There-
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
You're all
But
good.
to me, it's like a language, man. Where when somebody keeps on playing something in front of you, like I always say this about my father, but that's what he did. Like he would play, in the 70s or whatever. When I was 5 or whatever, I was growing up listening to him play Eagles, and he would come and play Bread. I don't know if you know who these people are, but they're like folk bands.
Yeah, man.
John Denver, and then he would sing a country song. It would be Merle Haggard or Hank Williams, George Jones. So it's this as a kid, I'm listening to all these tones, right? I'm listening to all this, and then when he go do his Tejano, well, he was into the brass thing back then, so he's listening to Lil Joe, right?
Sonny
all these
Ozuna,
guys, man.
yep.
Sonny Ozuna. I mean, oh my God. So Big Lou. I don't know if y'all remember Big Lou.
Yeah, Big Louie Los Compadres, yep.
Yeah. So he's listening to this, and I'm just like, it's just absorbing, man. I'm like learning a language to me, like another language, and all these tones. I was just amazed. I was impressed by it. So I think at the age of maybe, I'm gonna say, and don't get me wrong, even then I was still listening to the pop music at that time, on the radio. Maybe in the 80s when I started getting into Prince and Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? I started listening to this, and my mind's getting blown away. I'm just like, wow, man, did you hear that? So I started DJing. That's because I love music that much. My cousin was a DJ. He kind of got me into it. I started mixing. We were just together. So here we are, man, throwing these house parties, going to the record store, buying records. And it got to the point where the R&B thing comes in is, I remember going to a friend of mine's house when I was in maybe junior high, and the first time I heard like real hip hop R&B, I went to this guy's house, and he had I don't know, do y'all remember cable radio?
Yeah.
Where you had to get a station from a long
like
distance, like Dallas or something, right?
Well,
you had
go ahead.
Yeah, you had to put the cable wire instead of the TV. You would actually put it in the back of your stereo, like to get the channel right.
You know
That's
what?
How back.
I was gonna say no. I was thinking you were talking about like how like back in the day, Dish Network used to have like the channels way at the end where it was like music at the end on the satellite dish. So when you said cable music, that's what I thought you were talking about. And I never heard of that, man.
I'm going back to 1945. No, this is like you actually stuck the cable wire into the stereo and screwed it in there, and you would get these other stations.
Wow.
That's how it would work.
That's wild, man.
So, man, he was the one that introduced me to I started hearing this station from Dallas, and we're in Wichita. So Dallas was about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So next thing I know, that's when I really got it. I was like, what is that? And it was like LL Cool J just came out, Run DMC, you know, all these. And I'm like, what is that? That was the coolest thing in the world to me. So that kind of got my mind flowing in other directions, you know.
You know,
and
I was going to say, I think Duke Ellington said it best. And Duke Ellington said, there's two kinds of music. Good music and the other kind.
I mean, I know that's right.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, man. Is that like how you were saying? You know, like music is kind of like, it's like this thing that transcends culture and language and anything. It's like it's its own onda, because I mean, if you think even like other forms of art, like whether it be you know, acting or painting or sculpting, like, you know, those things are very, very tangible, right? And music's one of those things that's almost not tangible. I mean, you can own a CD, you can own a cassette or a record or an MP3 on a hard drive or whatever, but like the medium for which you actually absorb it is through the air. And because you're doing that, it's like you absorb it. It's like another sense. Like all other music or all other forms of art are visual, right? Like acting, you're seeing things, and sculpting, you're seeing things, and you know. But music is the only art form that you can shut off all your other senses. You can, you know, you're not tasting anything, you're not smelling anything. You close your eyes and you just let your ears absorb everything. And just by doing that, it can take you like on a journey, you know. And like what you're saying about, you know, hey, I listen to R&B, I listen to country, I listen to whatever, heavy metal, you know. That's good, because like now bringing it back to Tejano music, like I think
that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, I'll let you talk about that then. I don't want to hijack the interview. Go ahead.
No. But I was just about to make that point about so when we get back to Tejano now, that's exactly what it is. It's all those all that music that people have heard over the years. They put it in to this style of music that creates this Tejano. And for me personally, like I always say Tejano is Texas made. That's why it's called Tejano. It's Texas made, man. You got all these sounds that are coming from everywhere, man. You got, for instance, you know, when Jerry was, God bless his soul, you know, whatever, Jerry De La Rosa was alive, you could tell, man, the jazz things that he would do just to make Jay's sound, okay, we need to make this sound. That was Jerry, man, that made that sound. You know what I mean? He made that sound, and everybody was like, wow, what is that? You know what I'm saying? That was like a jazzy R&B mix into Spanish, man. Yeah. And I'm proud to say that, because that's cool, man. That's cool that, you know, us as Mexican Americans, let's just put it that way, can actually bring all that other music into a Tejano sound and make go wow, and people go, man, did you just hear that? That was dope. You know,
I think to that there was something, I forgot where I read it, but they were saying that jazz is the only true American art form of music, because if you take country music or any other kind of music, like all that has migrated here, right? Jazz is truly the only American made music. But to that, what I say is that it's not the only form of music. The other one that never gets mentioned is Chicano music, Tejano music, music that because that is made here in the U.S. Now, the only thing that I'll disagree with you on, I do believe that for the majority of it, it is Texas made, right? And because it is called Tejano music, but a couple decades ago, it was called La Onda Chicana, right? Because there was other influences from California. And here's the biggest thing, okay? Going back to Jay, going back to R&B, going back to talking about, all those other influences, man. And I know I'm biased because I live in the Midwest, but Midwest was a big influence. Motown, all that stuff that was happening up this way, that kind of even jazz. I mean, if you talk about Kansas City blues and all that stuff that were and not to get into a big history lesson, but I did hear like a long time ago that a lot of the jazz musicians from like Louisiana area were actually learning from musicians, the Mexican musicians that played banda music. They would come up to Louisiana and they would teach African Americans how to like play music. So like really the roots of jazz even go back further back into our culture, into banda music, banda de viento, like wind instruments that came from Mexico, So that's crazy how all that kind of comes together. And that's why I say jazz is the true unique
format
music that came out of the US, but nobody talks about it. Tejano music or Chicano music, however you want to call it, So. And
I do believe that. And it opens my mind even wider. I just got through seeing this documentary on Miles Davis. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
Perhaps. What was the name of it?
Oh man, I can't think of the name of it. I can't think of the name of it to save my life. But it was a documentary on him. They were just kind of just running you through his whole life story on Netflix. Oh my God, dude! Like. So when you're saying this to me right now, you know what I mean? That's what it kind of reminds me of, just that right there. Santana, was even on there talking about this guy. You know what I mean? That he's an Hispanic American. That's where, and Santana got his R&B vibes from the African tribes and the percussions. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff that intrigues me. That brings me back to me when I was talking about me going to the record store when I was a DJ, and yes, I would go buy at that time I probably was buying the hip hop albums and the R&B albums, whatever. But at the same time, because I was so intrigued on what other people were doing out there, right? Like I would go and I would buy this album it would be from India. I remember just belly dance music, man. That's what it was. And I would buy it because I wanted to hear what the sounds or whatever they did to, I was a kid. I didn't know. I was just like intrigued. So I'd go home and I'd put the record on and here I am and I'm listening to all this sitar guitars and all this crazy stuff that I never knew about until today. Now, I'm like, wow, what was that? What kind of guitar was that? Or what kind of, the weirdest thing in the world, man, how your mind works. I think that all has to do with being a producer too, though. I don't think, you don't have to be the greatest musician to be a producer. Let me just say that. That's a whole different thing right there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely right.
Learning how to put a song together, or knowing what's catchy, knowing what is that hook gonna work? No, maybe not. Those are different things than being a musician. When you put your mind to work. To me personally, I've known some great musicians that don't know how to even put a song together, but they're the dopest musicians you could ever meet in your life.
Absolutely.
But they just don't know how to do that,
Right. I mean, even think in terms of like record executives, like I hardly think that any record executives from like the big, like, Sony or Warner Brothers or anything, like I doubt that they have a degree in music performance or even know how to construct, D minor 7 flat 5, blah, 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 whatever, they don't know none of that. They just have an ear. They have a gift for knowing what works and what doesn't. Real quick, I want to send a shout out going out to John Cruz, who says, "What's up, Mark?"
What's up, John?
And also Angelo again, talking about my shirt, just for an hour, and we haven't talked a single thing about keyboards, man.
It's
all good, man. It's cool. Well, how about this? So you're playing with Ledesma now. You guys started this band, and you're doing some keys with the band right now, right? Or do you guys have a separate keyboard player?
No, right now I do the keys. But what happens? What I've been doing again, all this technology again, is I've been using Ableton.
Right.
So what I do is I probably sequence some sounds here and there and put them together, and the rest I'll play like if I just take my pick. Let's just put it that way. Okay, I'm gonna play Rose. I'm gonna play strings this time or whatever, right?
Right.
And I kind of lay back and do that because I'm still doing the singing as well, with the harmonies and with the. I mean, eventually I would love to get somebody, but I've been using Ableton. And then, like I said, technology grows, man, and this is where we're at. I mean, every time I talk about I know some people have their issues with it. You know, well, you're not playing live, you're not. But everybody on my stage, we play live.
Right.
You know, everybody does. Even if I'm just playing the Rose or whatever I'm playing, we're still playing live. And
Right.
I'll tell you what. Here's another thing that, since I'm in the technology, you know, when you start finding out when you go pay $300 a ticket to go see Bruno Mars, and you go see everybody and their mama is using Ableton.
Yep.
And the reason, and it's not nothing bad about it. I just think they're trying to find the little sounds that are going to be still in there to make that sound the way it needs to sound when it's on the radio or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's just technology growing.
People get accustomed to hearing the song a certain way. You know, bringing it back. I mean, bringing it to me a little bit, like my band Motivo. We do use some backing tracks on certain things because, like, so for example, if there's a song, right, that has if everybody's expecting a sax solo right there, and I'm not gonna. And from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense for me to hire a saxophone player to play or to stand there all night for 5 minutes of, you know, whatever.
I agree.
Have it sampled, hit the sample, and we're all set to go. Or if there's like a cool background vocal thing, you know, there's 6 vocalists. You know, you don't have the budget like, you know, Mariah Carey, who has a whole choir of, you know.
And I think it's very important. Like, you know, the reason people like our band, let me just say, you know, we do play everything. We play country, we play the Tejano, we're playing the R&B music. Now, what you just said right now is my biggest complaint ever. Like, when I go hear a band, and I'm not talking crap about nobody, I'm just saying, I want to hear that song like it's supposed to sound, or right. To me, it's just going to be like, man, I don't know, it didn't sound right. You know, and that's just me, my head thinking, you know. So, for instance, when we do this country, I do keep the fiddle in there. Yeah. I do keep the steel guitar in there. I do keep the acoustic maybe playing in the background because that's country music. If you don't have those essential things in a country song, it's not gonna sound country.
You know what? I want to send a real quick shout out to a very super talented good friend of mine, Chris Strunk, in the house, from I believe he's from Pontiac, Michigan, one of the burbs of Detroit. But he plays in a lot of the local Tejano bands here. Super great talent, good ears, great, you know, studio guy. But he brought up a good point. He says backing tracks for the most part are giving the crowd a fuller experience of doing your thing, and that is true. That is absolutely true because, you know, if you're trying, like you said, if you're trying to do a country song and you don't have a fiddle, somebody playing fiddle, you're not doing that song justice. You're just another, and I'm sorry to say it this way, but you're just another Mexican trying to sound country, and you don't, and you know what I mean, because it's not authentic. And that's the one thing I think about being Mexico-Americanos, right? Like being Mexican-American is that, like, going back to the Selena movie, you got to be more Mexicans than the Mexicans. You got to be more American than Americans. And here's the thing. If you're going to go out there, and the same thing, if you're going to play a norteño tune, that has to sound norteño, because if not, the Mexicans will pick you apart and say, he didn't say that word right. You know, the accordion's not being played the right way, and this and that. And then, and on the opposite side, if you're playing something, and by the way, when you guys came to Toledo, I remember you guys played Suit and Tie, and that was dope.
Oh, man.
That was dope.
Yeah.
And it sounded like Timberlake, man. It's like, you guys did your thing and whatever, and all, you guys had a couple backtracks and stuff like that. But
we had
like Chris said,
percussions,
Yeah, it just adds to what's already there, right? A lot of people think that like tracks are cop-outs for, oh, well, they can't play that live. No, you can play it live, but you would need 20 people and like all in a mobile studio to make it happen. And it's not practical sometimes,
It's not. And not only that, man, it just, like you just said, man, it just gives the flavor of that little edge. It gives that little edge that you're going to be like, oh my God, did you just hear that?
Yep.
That they did that song justice. And then when you have the vocals to back it up, then it's just like, oh man, and then everybody's like, whoa, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think, I don't think it's a cop out. And most of the time, honestly, it's the budget, like you just said.
Yep.
You don't have this big budget to be trying to pay a fiddle player to come and play maybe 4 songs, or or a steel guitar, or maybe you need trumpets and horns and. This is not the Earth, Wind, and Fire days anymore, man. You can't. That's a lot of people to be trying to pay.
It is.
Now, if you ever get, I ain't gonna lie. If we ever made it that big, I guarantee you, then I'll start. Okay, let's go get this guy. Let's go get the.
But here's the thing, Mark.
But you gotta get there first, bro.
But here's the thing. Even if you get there, you said it too. Even if you get there, Bruno Mars is still using tracks.
Oh, yeah.
And he got horn players for days, and he got a bad band, 2 keyboard players, drums. You know what I mean? They got like the whole shebang, and they still use tracks. And I don't think. And
a friend of mine told me the other day too, man, that he went and ran sound for, but he's a great vocalist, man. Yep. Oh my God. Anyways, and they had all these horns were playing, right? All this stuff was playing. He's like, well, they only got 4 guys. Where's like, well, they're tracking, man. They're tracking to make the song sound like it's supposed to, And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because as long as Eric Benet is dope. If you ever heard of him, man, this dude is a greatest vocalist. I mean, he's a great vocalist, man. Yeah, hands down. So. People. I think you just got to know the difference. You know why. And maybe this is good that we're speaking about it, because it kind of tells everybody, look, this is why we do it,
And you know what, Mark? You actually bring up a very important thing that I don't think we've ever discussed on Tejano Keyboards as far as these interviews are concerned. But before I go to that point, I want to send a shout out going out to Kathy Mata, who says, loving the interview. It's great to get to know the musicians. We go to the show. We don't know what... we don't always get a chance to talk with them. We love Ledesma. They are fire. Thanks for your time, Mark. So that's what she said too. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
But going back to,
because I remember also, we go back to the keyboards a little bit. Yeah. When I first started in my dad's band, he bought me an organ. I had actually, it was not a full organ, but an electric organ. It still had the drawbars, right, and everything. And I had an organ, and on top of that, I had this Yamaha piano. And this is even before the DX7 and the DX9s were out. This is before that, bro. Right. So I remember I used to have all these keyboards all over the place, like normal bands would do back then. You had about 5 keyboards everywhere, right?
Like Yanni at the Acropolis.
Yeah, like Yanni with the long hair, all the long hair just coming down. Yeah. So man, those are the days that I'm talking about, where I understand where people coming from, because that was me, man. I had the DX7, the DX9, just kept adding, just kept adding the rolling, along the way. Keyboards change, and you have to buy all these keyboards and blah blah blah. But here we go, back to technology, computers, the Mac. They came up with Apple. Whatever, Windows, whatever you got. But I'm just saying, now we got plugins. Now you got sounds that are on plugins. You got Omnisphere, that I think Omnisphere is just dope, man. These sounds that are on there are like big. I mean, they're just blowing up.
And you know what's crazy, man, is even some of these like legacy keyboard companies are getting hip to that. Korg just released the Triton VST. I never would have thought that I would have seen. You can get a whole Triton, yeah, the M1, you know, whatever, and even Roland's doing like the D50 and like, so you can get all these classic keyboard sounds, man. I mean, listen, what's that new tune? Well, it's not new anymore, but by The Weeknd, it sounds like 80s.
Oh yeah, it sounds like The Cure or something.
Yeah, it sounds like Stranger Things, man. Like, you know that show on Netflix, Stranger Things? It sounds like that, but all those sounds are those big like pad synths from like the 80s and stuff, and like all that's coming back because like people don't really have access to those synths anymore, but as plugins, man, you know, that a lot of that stuff's coming back.
That's what the cool thing to me is about technology, because now they're making them. It was like that whole thing with Slate. I don't know if y'all remember, not too long ago, they just came up with that whole microphone thing, right? And now they have all these virtual plugins that can make your vocals sound like an old tube back in the days.
Yeah, you can get one microphone and make it sound like basically any mic through any preamp, through whatever, you know, whether it's a Neumann U87 or if it's a SM58, you know, it could be whatever microphone you want.
That is amazing. That to me is amazing. That's where I'm coming to go. I agree with the whole technology thing. I think it's cool. Now people are gonna differ, you know that. You know, people are gonna be like, "Nah, man, I gotta do the band thing." But to me, I just feel like the technology, and it's easier on my back. Now I ain't gotta carry all these keyboards. I'm getting old, man. I don't want to be carrying 5 keyboards around.
I know, man. You know,
I'm trying to have one keyboard in front of me, and that's it.
Right. When you have a road crew and they're setting it up for you, you know what I mean? Then set up 10 keyboards, right? But when you're doing that yourself, man, nah, bro. I carry one keyboard and, you know, maybe a keyboard and a MIDI controller, but like for the last, I don't know, 3 years, it's been like one keyboard, man. You know,
I got you, brother. I got you, and that's where I'm at too with it. You know, and I don't, like I say, man, it don't take away from nothing. I just think it's just the new technology that's coming out. And plus, like you say, on your laptops, you're having all these sounds go to your laptops now, like we just talked about. All these synth programs, Biotech and Omnisphere, like I just mentioned. There's a bunch of them, massive. I mean, all these synth programs are big, and they sound big. I mean, they sound great. Yeah. I think they do, personally. You know, I'm like, man, I'm loving it. So
even like the fact that like some of these plugins, they're able to mimic like these old FM synthesizers, man. And like, so for example, like this is the keyboard that I use live. This is the Kronos, right? But they have that FM synthesis, which they can't call it a DX7 because that's Yamaha technology, and this is a Korg, right? But it's basically under the hood.
It sounds like that.
It is a Korg, or I mean, it is a Yamaha DX7 engine built in under there. That when you go on the internet, and you know how people used to save the system exclusive, the SysX files for the DX7, you can actually load those right into the Kronos, and you get those same sounds, those same. It's not like you can get a DX7 from 1980 whatever and put it up against the Kronos and play them, and they sound like the same exact thing, man. Because under the hood, they are making the same exact waveforms because the technology has advanced so far. And here's the thing: there's FM synthesizer VSTs that you can get now, that you can even start dropping in some of those files, and you got a DX7 from 1980 whatever right on your laptop, you know, and you can fold it up and throw your laptop in the case and have your MIDI controller the other hand and your stand, and you're ready to go, man.
I'm loving it, man. I can't lie to you. I love that stuff. I'm intrigued by it, and I'm intrigued by all the developers that are making all this, man. I'm just like, wow, it's interesting to me. So I really dig it.
Who would have thought being nerdy would have paid off, right?
I'm that kid that my tape deck used to mess up. I would open it
and learn how to and try to figure out how to fix it.
Big old ass sign on there that says, "Do not open this, radiation."
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I might turn into the Incredible Hulk one day, brother. I don't know.
Hey, everything that you own, the warranty has already been voided because you already took that mofo apart. I don't know how many times.
Yeah, that was me, man. I'm that kid, man. Golly, man. My mom and dad would be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're gonna electrocute yourself, man. Te vas a dar un toque. Entonces, sí. Let's see. Let's get a couple more shout outs in here. Michael Ibarra says, "Dude, that's still me. I still set up 20 keys." Okay, yeah.
I believe it.
And then Chris Strunk says, "Times have changed in the music industry. Artists need to change with the industry. If not, the artists will be left behind. VSTs are awesome." I do agree. Also, John Ortiz says he still uses the DX7. You know what? I'm not even.
Wow.
He put LOL, but I don't think that's funny. I think that's awesome, man. Because
I think that's awesome too.
A lot of people, and think about it. I forgot which artist it was, but I was. It had to have been like one of these, like maybe it was like the Eagles, or I don't know. It was a band that, like, when the Korg M1 first came out, they're like, "Oh, you can do everything on this keyboard." That people like got rid of all of their studio stuff. Yeah. Like they're like, "We got rid of compressors, we got rid of old analog synths because we can do it all on this keyboard." Right? Later on, they're kicking themselves in the butt because they're like, "Man, I should have never got rid of that." Universal Audio. UA whatever 1176 compressor or whatever just for an M1, but now it's like the tables have turned because like people now have access to all these sounds via VST, and what are people going back to? They're going back to the DX7, the M1, the D50. They're going back to the Moog sounds, man. What was it? I think even Behringer made like a knockoff Moog. They can't even call it that, but it's like some kind of like patch synth where like you can get all the same sounds from like a mini Moog, and like in a little, Behringer is what it is, but they, I saw a video and the guy was like, "Okay, here's an actual Moog right here, and then here's my little cheapy Behringer," and they sound identical, man. Exactly. It's crazy. You can even get that big fat sound, man. Wow, man, I gotta check that out because I hadn't seen that, but you're correct, man. And some of those Moog sounds, like back in the days, I know people did try it. They were having a hard time. They would want to, let me go try to get that sound again, and they couldn't do it. So I can imagine people going, "Man, I wish I would have kept that board." But it is happening. It's happening now. It is. Yeah. And here's the thing is that like a lot of people were all about sample technology like in the early 90s, and if you think about it, like like the M1 and the O1W and like all the JV Roland stuff, they were all romplers, really what they were. They were so they were samples on a ROM chip of sounds, right? The D50 was different because just the transient, just the beginning part of the note was actually a sample, and then the waveform after it was synthesized. So that's how you would get that sound. But then the M1 came, and it was just like, well, it's all samples. And then they call it a synth because you can manipulate the waveform, but it's not really. It's a rompler. It's not a true synthesizer. You're not creating a sound from nothing. You have a sample, and then you're changing the sample, right? With that being said, is that people would try to get those Moog sounds, those big fat Moog sounds, thinking, well, if I sample it, I can still get that sound, and you can't because it's a whole different technology. Like once you start stretching out that waveform and trying to put it on different keys, it's not going to sound the same anymore. It acts like a completely different animal. But like you were saying, now that the VSTs actually can mimic that technology now, you actually can get that fat Moog sound or that whatever vintage synth that And I think that's cool, man. I think that is so cool, and I can't wait to hear some of the stuff they just keep making new stuff all the time, and and there's so many sounds you got to dig through these days, but I know, that's probably the only thing. But other than that, man, it's a cool thing to know that they're going to bring some of this stuff like that back. Oh my God. That's the coolest thing in the world to me. I'm like, wow. And make it sound exactly like that. Oh man, I think that's so dope. Yeah. I can't wait. I mean, they're doing it already, as a matter of fact. But I'm just saying. And here's the thing, like, before I get into this real quick, want to send a shout out going out to Dave Rodriguez, great accordion player here in the Midwest. Dave Rodriguez Jr. Awesome. He says, "Awesome, what's up, fellas?" So shout out going out to him. Think about this, Mark, and you tell me how you feel about it, okay? All right. when people went from analog synths to digital synths, people's minds went, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're like in this renaissance sort of thing where it's like it's all coming back around, and the technology is getting to the point right now where we're able to kind of mock what we used to have before, okay? And over the course of, say, 10, 20 years, technology has made such a big leap. Now, 20 years from now, what do you think the technology is going to be like, man, as far as sounds?
Oh, my. I can't even imagine. I really don't know, but
Dude, I mean, think about it this way. You even said it yourself. Who would have ever thought 5 years ago, right? Or I don't know how long the Slate mic has been around, but like even 10 years ago, right? That they would be like, hey, if you buy this one mic right here, it's like having a whole mic locker. You know, you get your pick of the litter. Like, who would have thought of that? Like, whose genius idea was it to just come up with something like that, you know?
That's what I'm saying. That's the kind of, and I'm into that. I'm into that big time. You know, I'm just so into the whole technology thing. I think, and you're right. Like I know some people disagree. Some people are old school, man, and they want to stick with what they know, and that's cool. But later on, if you're trying to do this longevity thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
If you want to be in the longevity game and you want to keep, making your mind as big as you can, then, I mean, you have to learn this stuff. You have to. Because it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's just going to wind up being where you just definitely in the keyboard now. You're not even, you know what I mean? Like, it's just getting there.
Yeah, and not just keyboard, but keyboard and it's interweaving with technology. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
If you don't know how to get around a computer, learn, because like that, like not just in terms of music, like the computer is such a universal tool, you know, when it comes to like work or anything, video editing, film editing, anything, it's all going to be computer based. So like it's time to get hip, you know what I mean? It really is.
And I'm not taking away anything from acoustic instruments at all, because I love acoustic instruments, and I'll always love them. I mean, you're always gonna want an acoustic guitar somewhere, a saxophone, a trumpet,
accordion,
whatever, accordion. But I'm not taking nothing away from that. But you still, even with those sounds, you still have to have somebody in that band or whatever you're in to be advanced enough to know what's going on with this other stuff, because it's going to lead to that regardless. You know what I'm saying? And regardless if you're still playing the accordion, the flute, the saxophone, the acoustic, regardless, it's still going to come back to the computer in the future. Yeah. So you're going to have to open your mind a little bit and just say, hey, I need to start trying to figure out how to do this, how to do that. Same thing, like when you get into this subject with CDs and albums and vinyl and what happened and why did they get rid of CDs? Because this is the way it goes. This is a format of things that have been happening for years. I know people get mad right now about the CDs, and because they always come to me about that. That's one thing they do come to me. Well, how come y'all ain't making no CDs? Because I'm just getting ready for the future. I already know what was going to happen. I already knew that these Walmarts weren't going to be having no CDs no more. Best Buys wasn't going to have no CDs no more. I'm not saying that it's not to get any. I'm just trying to prepare myself what's going to happen, just like vinyl went out, just like 8 tracks went out, just like tapes went out, cassette tapes. Yep. It's an ongoing thing, and it's going to happen. It's the same thing. It's going to happen again. You know.
And to that, Mark, I think that because of the way that the technology is going, is that like the artist has more of a connection to the audience now, you know what I mean? And there's less people along the way, you know, as far as a record label or whatever. Now, but let me ask you your opinion on this, okay? So CDs, cassettes, 8 tracks, vinyl, whatever, they were tangible items that you could buy. You could peel off the vacuum seal, whatever. You could read the liner notes. You could read the credits. You don't get that when you get just an MP3. So, in your opinion, what do you think needs to change, or what do you foresee to be able to still give the audience that sort of experience, and to be the guy or the gal who reads the liner notes and say, oh, so and so played drums on this, and this guy mixed the album.
I agree.
What do you think needs to happen to
I totally agree with what you just said. I totally agree with that. Well, the thing that I think needs to happen, if you're going to keep it digital, it's just like us when we first started Ledesma, and we had to make a decision. What are we going to do? We're going to spend money on CDs. Are people actually really going to buy a new artist CDs? Is it worth it for us to go? You got to make that business decision too, right? So I'm like, look, it costs a lot to make CDs. If we're going to make a lot of them, what do we need to do? So in our mind, I started thinking and kind of just seeing what everybody else, what the international people were doing. And they were like, well, I was like, man, let's just do it like this, because this way we can put our Ledesma will always be going on this little digital cover that people are going to see, right? And every single that we put out, well, guess what we're going to do? We're going to take a picture that's going to have our picture on there, and it's going to have Ledesma on there. So at the same time, I understand, I'm going to get to that point in a minute, but I'm saying this was our way of marketing and showing people who Ledesma was. And every song that we did was a single, but it was a marketing plan. It was a scheme, because they saw the picture. It was a different picture. So we gave them a different picture. On an album, when you got 10 songs, you still only have one picture. And then, yes, you do open it up and you get the credits and you get the, who did this, who did that. You get your thank yous, right? All this stuff happens. But basically, you were just giving them that one cover, and what did the back look like? And that was about it. Right now, we're kind of we were marketing Ledesma. Okay, well, here's a different picture. Oh wow, did you see that picture? Yeah, well, and we're trying to get y'all's brain to know who Ledesma was, right? Now, getting to your point, I started to realize that myself, and I was like, you know what? So this, just like this R&B, the isolated R&B song that I just recently put out. Well, I said, you know what? I put it on my cover. There it is, keys. It tells you right here on the side who did everything. And I was like, man, this would be cool, man. People weren't, I don't know, maybe there's, I'm not gonna say nobody didn't do it, but I was like,
I was gonna say, didn't Jazz Cats used to do that back in the day, like on the vinyl records? Like you would see, John Coltrane, tenor sax, or it was his album, right? John Coltrane, and it would featuring blah 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 on drums and whoever. So that's kind of like bringing it back old school, but like implying or applying it to modern day technology. I saw Chris Strunk right now just also mentioned USB sticks at live shows. That's a good idea too. I mean, it's hard too because now you have the overhead of having to actually buy and format those USB sticks. You know what I mean? For
you
that,
can put everything on there. Yeah,
right.
That's the cool thing about the USB sticks. You can put your video on there. You can put whatever you want on there. The other thing is, look at the cars these days. You can't go buy a brand new car. They do not have CD players in these cars anymore. Right. All it is just a USB stick, and so when you start seeing these kind of things, you know something's about to change again. Right. So now we just have to adapt, man. We have to keep even our old school people to understand that we have to adapt to the times, or you're just going to get lost. You will get lost in that world, and if you want to, again, it's just where are you at that time? Do you want to keep going with your music? Do you want to keep improving? Do you want, I guess that's what it is really. To each his own, right? Right. But I think I'm that person though, just like some of these other cats are right here, where he's talking about that, the USB sticks. These are the things that are going to be, I think pretty soon, it's probably all going to be, you're going to go buy a USB stick like a CD. To be honest with you, that's what I think is going to happen, and it might cost more. Why? Well, because, guess what? We have our video on here.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can completely market it a different way. And that's the other thing too, is that because if you start thinking of everything in terms of raw digital formats, right? As opposed to like, okay, here's a CD and a CD can only be audio, and here's a DVD that can be video and audio, but like nobody really has DVD access or Blu-ray access in their cars. I mean, some do, right? But still, like even DVDs and Blu-rays are going wayside, man. They really are.
Exactly.
You know, so to think of kind of like a ubiquitous sort of medium that's, you know, readily available, and not only that, but the ubiquity of the formats that actually go on a thumb drive. I mean, you're talking about MP3. If you want somebody who wants high quality audio, you could even, you know, put waves on there, you know, if they wanted to hear the raw studio sound of the recording, as opposed to something that's been you know, cut down. And that was another thing that I kind of wanted to talk to you about and see your opinion on it. But it seems like people in the visual industry are all about progressing the technology, right? It's all about like, this is 4K, this is 8K, this is, you know, so many frame rate a second, you know, and it's like bigger TVs, bigger fidelity, bigger, you know, whatever, right? Or not fidelity, but definition, right? And it seems like in the music industry, it's like we're going in regression, right? Because it's like, okay, well, we record in 24-bit, 48 kilohertz sampling rates, which is still not great. I mean, because considering that movies and DVDs go to, you know, 192 or whatever, you know what I mean? And we're dumbing everything down to MP3. That's like, it's horrible. Like you're cutting so much of the music, of the sound out of that. You know what I mean? But definitely go ahead.
No, I agree with you on that. I think you should. I think you need to give the raw file out. You need to give the WAV file, you know, and whatever, you know, the MP3, you are dumbing it down, and you can tell. I mean, and I don't know, maybe. So that's, man. So when you start talking about that, right? Like these people that buy the music, and you're not a really musician, I don't think you are going to tell the difference. You're just your mind is just thinking about the song. You're thinking about. So when you go to that extreme, then it's like, okay, well, they don't understand that part, right? Well, and nothing to be rude about it. It's just that the average person that is not a musician is not going to understand the difference between an MP3 and a WAV. What is that? What do they sound like? You're not going to sit there and really actually listen to that. But we do, and we know better, and we know what sounds fatter and what sounds real thin, and you know what I mean. Those are the things that we. I mean, when you talk about when they used to record on just the reels, man. If you were back then and would hear that sound, I remember when I was doing the audio band thing, right? And I went to Manny Studios a long time ago here, and they still had this reel to reel. I'm sorry, and they would play it. And again, if you're that musician, man, you know the difference. Like you can hear the fatness of the tape. You know what I'm saying? That was being played. And to me, that was interesting to me, man. And I still love that sound. I ain't gonna lie, I love it. I could tell you that's probably one of the, just like vinyl. Same thing, you know, you get this sound. Like it's just, to me, it's just, I don't know how to explain it, man. It's hard to explain that to probably your audience, right? Like to just a person was gonna just buy your music. It's hard to explain that feeling of hearing that, or maybe just even the pop in the record. You know what I'm saying? Like just even that. Like how can you explain that? There's some people that love that pop. They just love the crackling sound of it. Like, God, man.
Yeah, and not only that, but the other thing that we've done, like with technology, and man, we've really talked for a long time, so we're probably gonna cut this down here soon. No, it's good. I love talking, man. And just, you know, for sake of people watching this, like, man, these guys won't shut up. But the one thing I was gonna say is that the saddest thing that's happened in digital music is that we went from having a dynamic range of this much on tape to this much dynamic range in digital audio, and everybody mixes like this. They're squishing it all the way up to the top. That's like, it just, when you look at the waveform, it looks like a big sausage across the screen. And there's no peaks and valleys. It's just distorted. there's no dynamics, there's no push, there's no like punch, you know what I mean? It's like everybody's trying to be as loud as they possibly can, and it's
like about finding the space, right? Like,
right.
Just how do you find that space? I mean, those big engineers talk about that all the time. You know, if you're going to engineer a song, you have to understand where the space is at in that instrument, and go look at the wave file. Mm-hmm. Go look at the wave file for that instrument alone and find out where this wave is coming in. And now you're talking about waves and sounds and that technology. You really have to study that. And if you're really not that engineer, then you shouldn't be trying to mix a song. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying, everybody has their point in life of what they really want to do. Now, if you're looking at these big engineers and you go see what they do, and really see how this wave looks exactly like this. We're fixing to mix. We're fixing to change this whole EQ up on this. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it all lies down. And I think a lot of people don't get that part. Is when it comes to what you just said. When it comes to this technology now on the computer-based stuff, it's changing. It's changing, man, every day. Yeah. And we have to figure it out, though. I know we got to figure it out.
Yeah.
But man, on your note, like I said, I tried to put everybody on that front cover, man, on this single that I just dropped, because I felt that, man. I felt what you said, and it's not right to not give people props anymore. And that's what's happening right now, is we're not giving people their props anymore. I think that's. Now, I do agree. I totally disagree with that. And I try to find a way, you know what, I'm going to put them on the front cover and make it look cool somehow. I mean, you have all these designers that they know how to make things look cool. Why not? Just put the name somewhere where you can see them still and give people their credit and talk about who wrote the song. Sometimes that ain't even getting out there anymore. They don't even know who wrote the song anymore.
Yeah, nobody knows, or nobody knows who engineered the album, right? And who mastered it, because those are art forms in themselves.
They are.
I think it's a disjustice. That's the only bad thing about this technology, is that we make the content more readily available to the masses, but at the expense of giving credit to people who have done the work to make it happen. Because like at the end of the day, the artist, the face that's on the cover, or maybe even like some people don't even know how to do that yet because they're behind the technologies, where you have an MP3 and it just says track 1 and you don't know who that is, who, if you're a new up and coming artist, get hip with it, man. If you're going to release an MP3 or something, at least be able to know how to put the meta tags in the MP3 so people know who the hell they're listening to. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can do that right at home these days with iTunes. Apple Music now.
Yep.
It allows you to go in there. You don't have to take it to a big label anymore. You can just write the title in there. It allows you to put your artwork on there. You don't have to take it somewhere. You can do it yourself so that it comes up on the screen, just like you said. So it's just advancing your mind, man, on these things, man, and knowing that you can do that as a new artist, right?
Right.
But this is good because, again, people don't talk about this, and they don't show the new artists that you can do that.
Yep.
And everybody's just to themselves these days that it's just they don't want to share the information. It's just like, man.
And you know what, man? That's what this whole channel has been about, like from the get. It's that, like, listen, I don't claim to know everything, and that's why I like having other people on, because here's the thing, when we start talking about these sort of things, these are things that either, like, I mean, of course, there's some people who are more knowledge than we are about these topics, but there's also a mass group of people that have no idea about this. And so hey, if it's anything having to do with chords or music theory, or hey, how do you combine your sounds together or whatever, or even like, hey, how do I release my song to the masses? Like, that's what this channel is about. And so I appreciate everybody who's subscribed and everybody who's liking the videos, because you're absolutely right, man. That's what's hurting Tejano music, is that people are hoarding the information. People are hoarding things like there's only a finite amount of wealth in the industry. Right. And here's the thing, man. it benefits me that you do well. And it benefits other people that I do well, because here's the reason. When there's variety, people don't get sick of it. And no disrespect to anybody else, but when you're only hearing David Lee, J, Mas, whatever, La Mafia, and you only hear those bands over and over at the same clubs, why are people not going anymore? Because those are the only bands that they're listening to. And no disrespect, like I said, no disrespect, because me personally, I could listen to those guys all day long, right?
Right. But I agree.
But you know, you have to be able to give people some variety. So you're actually, if you're hoarding information, you're doing yourself a disjustice. It behooves you to actually be able to help somebody else out, because when somebody else succeeds, that leaves the coattails for somebody else to follow behind, and all that does is just help lift everyone up. But that's enough of my whole soapbox about what this channel is about and helping each other and all that. But Mark,
I gotta tell you, man, I'm glad you're doing it. I really am, because people do need to understand. They do, and it's good, man. Yeah. And I will say one thing to that, you know, just that if you are a new artist, and I've said it before, and I've even gotten asked about some new artists. Well, how come they're, you know, what you just said, how come they're playing David Lee? How come they're playing Jay Perez? How come they're doing this? Well, let me tell you, again, it goes back to creating something, creating a certain sound. Maybe it was the music, maybe it was the vocals. Maybe it was something that set people apart. When you hear, let's just for instance, Gary Hobbs. When you hear Gary Hobbs sing, there ain't nobody that sounds like Gary Hobbs at all. Period. I don't care who you. It's just that sound. It's the tone of his voice. It just flipped everything upside down.
Yep.
If you're an artist and you're looking why, that's why. This is why those people were always getting played. When you're wondering why they're getting played, it's because they created something a little bit different, so that they could keep their longevity going forever. Same thing with David Lee. Nobody will ever play like, every time you hear that song, I don't care who's singing. I don't care if it's Jay. I don't care if it's a Ram, Emilio. It doesn't matter. You know, the first three notes that come out of those guys is, you know, it's David Lee.
Yep.
Well, that's why they have longevity. That's all I'm going to say about that. You know I don't want to keep everybody's time, but
no, it's all good,
just trying
man.
to talk.
These are important issues to talk about, man. This is very important to talk about. And so I'm glad that, I mean, and to be honest with you, this is the most different interview that I've had, you know, because like most of the time it's like, hey, what sounds are you using and what keyboard's this? And, you know, but this is good because I want to be able to touch on these topics. I just didn't realize that this was going to be the interview that was going to do that. So, but Mark, I want to thank you for your time, man. We've been on the air for like an hour and 40. It's all good though. Real quick before we go, man, is there any parting words that you want to give to the watchers or the people reviewing, and also any information that you want to let people know about how to get in contact with Ledesma or what you want to promote? You know, this is kind of your plug right here.
Yeah, no, Ledesma is we actually, like I said, it's giving us time right now to come up with all our music that we haven't had time, you know, from playing and things like that. So we've been in the studio. We've already got 3 songs done, to be honest with you, and I'm going to release one here pretty soon. Called a little song called Siempre Contigo it was written by Emmanuel Ghana, which was in our group for a little bit, man. And it was a song, it was a duet that he wrote, and then we all got together, him and Lisa Moore got together on some of the words, and kind of, you know, we just kind of fixed it up to where it was going to be, you know, what Ledesma, you know,
right.
Like, we had to put that together. So to all our fans that are actually have been waiting for another song, we got another song coming out right now. Here pretty soon, and I just want to thank you, man. Thank you so much for doing this, man. It's good to see people out here and really actually caring, you know what I mean, and caring and actually giving people knowledge, and that's cool, man. And I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
The feeling's mutual, man. I appreciate your time. If you want to hang around for a second, I'm going to sign off.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody who tuned in. Don't forget, next week we have David De La Garza from La Mafia will be in the house. And so be sure to get your questions ready and tell your friends. And, and then soon I'll be releasing the May lineup of our little quarantine interviews, Tejano Keyboard live interviews. We'll see how many of these we do. There's a big list of keyboard players. I've been trying to contact as many of them as I can, but also not to go too far out because I don't know how long this lockdown is going to be. And then once people get back to work, if they don't really have time for us, you know what I mean? So whatever. But at any rate, thank you, Mark. Thank you guys.
Yes, sir.
And we'll see you guys next week.